now to Aurel Braun. He's a Professor of International Relations and Political Science at the University of Toronto. Great to have you on the program tonight. Is Carney the right person to lead Canada when his country is now on the front line of a trade war?
Certainly the Liberal Party thought that because Mr. Carney is not a professional politician, he has no seat in Parliament, and yet he won in such an enormously convincing way that it was more of a coronation than a contest. So the Liberal Party, which has been revitalized, is banking, so to speak, on Mr. Carney being able to bring them victory when 2 months ago the Liberal Party was almost down and out. And this is what we see, in a sense, both irony and the law of unintended consequences. Mr. Trump played a crucial role in the revival of the Liberal Party, which he despises, and in the selection of Mr. Carney, because the party wanted someone who at least appeared to be different from Mr. Trudeau, even though Mr. Carney shares much of Mr. Trudeau's philosophy, though not all.
So you feel the Conservative movement in Canada is weaker at the moment with Carney in the lead?
Certainly, when we look at opinion polls, and we just have to go back 2 months, there has been an astonishing shift. The Conservative Party was ahead by more than 20 points, and now the Liberals are within striking distance. Now, will this last? That we don't know, because there's so much unpredictability. But it was the case that Mr. Trump wanted to do maximum damage to the Trudeau government. The late Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives supposedly said that all politics are local, whereas for Mr. Trump it seems all politics are personal, and he intensely disliked Mr. Trudeau, who resigned, but now he has to go with Mr. Carney, who is a much more formidable opponent than Mr. Trudeau was.
And we know he is a former top central banker who became a G7 leader. It's a rather rare path, but perhaps in this case good timing, given Trump has suggested using economic power to take over Canada, would you say?
He has said that, but I'm highly skeptical that he meant that, or his advisors believed that. It was a way of humiliating Mr. Trudeau, but Mr. Trudeau and the Liberals turned that around. So this is where irony comes in. That Mr. Trudeau wanted to create the first post-national state. And yet when this threat was made by Mr. Trump, and Mr. Trump insisted on calling Prime Minister Trudeau the governor of Canada, and that Canada would be the 51st state, then they switched to nationalism. And Mr. Carney has run on a platform of nationalism, that Canada is standing up to the United States, that we are going to fight tariffs. Now, this is easier said than done, because we must not forget that the American economy is at least 10 times as large as that of the Canadian economy, that Canada is vastly more dependent on trade than the United States. And Canada has 80% of its trade with the United States. So we, at the same time, may be outraged by the policies of Mr. Trump, but we also need to be wise and cautious.
Right. We know that Canada, of course, is part of the Commonwealth, much like Australia, the UK, South Africa, just to name a few. Carney's focus is on international solidarity and in defence of the existing multilateral system. How much support will Carney get, given they want to show a strength against the US, but countries like the UK are trying to cozy up to the White House? How will Canada try and rally its Commonwealth allies to try and gain support in the face of Donald Trump?
It will be a tall task, because Australia really needs United States for its regional defense. In the case of the UK, they want to have good relations with the United States. They believe they have a special relationship with the Americans. And you saw when Mr. Starmer, the Prime Minister of Britain, visited, he went out of his way to compliment and to try to appease Mr. Trump. So he's taking a very different tack from the campaign speech and the acceptance speech that Mr. Carney made. It is also the case that Canada cannot just switch trade from 80% to the United States to 80% Europe and the rest of the world. that would take many, many, many years. So Mr. Carney also said that he's pragmatic. Well, that means that he has to find a way to make sure that he preserves Canada's interests, while at the same time avoid an all-out confrontation with the United States. And the Liberals now seem to be riding fairly high in the polls, but he hasn't been tested. Mr. Carney does not even have a seat, as I noted, in Parliament. So there will be a honeymoon, but we don't know how long the honeymoon will last. And we also do not know if Mr. Carney, as Prime Minister, will call an election before October, when he has no choice but to have an election. And timing is also important in politics.
All right, Aurel Braun, that's all the time we have for now. Really appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.